Szanowni Państwo, pragnę powitać byłych więźniów obozu Auschwitz oraz ocalałych z zagłady. Witam przedstawicieli władz państwowych i samorządowych oraz delegacje zagraniczne. Witam ambasadorów państw, którym historia tego miejsca pamięci w sposób szczególny leży na sercu. Witam przedstawicieli kościołów i
representatives of the churches and religious communities, including Jewish unions and communes, as well as representatives of the Roma community. May I welcome all those who have arrived here at this ceremony and those who are with us online and over the TV.
Szanowni Państwo, o zabranie
Ladies and gentlemen, may I now ask a former inmate of KL Auschwitz, Ms. Halina Birenbaum.
Można jeszcze tutaj tak. A to mi przeszkadza czytać. Wyjm to tak. I daj mi tam te okulary. Jeszcze chwileczkę. Szanowni drodzy Państwo, byli więźniowie i więźniarki Auschwitz, dyrekcja, pracownicy Państwowego Muzeum Auschwitz-Birkenau oraz wszyscy przybyli dziś na 79. rocznicę wyzwolenia z piekła Auschwitz. Z głębokim wzruszeniem stoję tu dziś razem z wami w miejscu, z którego można powiedzieć tylko jako
that you could leave only in the form of a chimney out of a stack.
W baraku numer 27.
Barak 27, this is where we are holding these commemorations. My barrack, just next door.
Blok 27.
Block 27, or rather the barrack 27, as you can see, is located right next to the ramp. And to the left of the barbed wire, you could see a building with a wide chimney. Gas chambers, crematoria were there. They burned and suffocated there a million Jews that have come here from countries that were occupied by Nazi Germany.
Widziałam to.
I saw it. I heard it.
Modlitwy hebrajskiej Shema Israel.
Shema Israel, this Jewish prayer. Listen, Israel.
W tym miejscu pracowałam też.
Here, I worked together with a group of female inmates. We were sorting the belongings of those that had been murdered.
Pociągów na wywóz do Niemiec.
Those who were waiting to be transported to Germany. I stayed here until January 18th, 1945.
Pracowałam między innymi przy sortowaniu.
I worked at the sorting and carrying. I sorted through things, through belongings of those that had been murdered. So the Canada Commando, our group at a certain point, we clashed into this column of Hungarian Jews and they were being led to death. to a guest chamber. There was a man and a woman. They had a baby in their arms, and the man asked, how much further to this Jewish colony because we need to feed our baby? These were his words. What could I say? What could have been my answer? We went on, and we just passed by. They were going to their deaths, to guest chambers, and on we went to sort their belongings. I couldn't say anything human, because those words didn't carry any meaning anymore. I had this terrible sense of the end of the world. Here, they brought all of them here, robbed them of everything, incinerated them here, and now we are sorting through these belongings that are supposed to be later shipped to Germany, and then we will also be killed and incinerate, and nothing is going to be left, and nobody is going to be left. But that was not something that happened. It was not meant to be. Now, before the Soviet army arrived, we were marched for 5 days. It was a march of death to 2 German camps, and there I was liberated. It was May 1945. I was liberated at the age of 15. Ever since until today, and I am 94 and a half years old, ever since then I have been describing it all. I've been telling these stories in different countries and in different languages. I saw the liberation. I lived a long life. There were many wars, and I do feel the suffering of the people today, right now. Now, there is this barbaric Russian invasion on Ukraine here, and these terrible barbaric attacks conducted by Hamas, war everywhere. Daughters and sons are falling. Those few who were born, it was happening in this new country, rebuilt country of Israel. And you can see those demonstrations in France and in Italy against Jews, against the state of Israel. For me personally, it is an extension of Auschwitz. The same in the USA. Students from such important universities as Columbia or Harvard, they are shouting on the streets, "Death to Jews and death to the state of Israel." And they are doing that in the name of freedom of speech, the sanctified freedom of speech. It's about killing others. It's about hatred towards others, your fellow humans. Evil. Good is not born out of evil, but good is something that can be defeated. The world will not be exterminated, will not be destroyed. The world needs to be vigilant and must not be indifferent, but must be resourceful. I deeply believe that it shall be so. So, shalom.
Szanowni Państwo,
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, may I now ask the Marshal of the Senate of the
Kidawę-Błońską.
Republic of Poland, Ms. Małgorzata Kidawa-Błońska.
Szanowni Państwo,
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen,
byli więźniowie obozu,
former inmates of the camp, survivors,
drodzy zgromadzeni, Szanowni Państwo.
dear ladies and gentlemen gathered here,
Aby upamiętnić
we're gathered here to commemorate an anniversary of liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau camp, where the Nazi Germany in the dark and murky years of the Second World War murdered over 1 million people.
w miejscu,
We are at a place that turned into a symbol of unspeakable suffering, hatred, cruelty, and disdain for the other.
to miejsce
This place made a tragical element of the history of Poland and Europe, being a witness of Shoah, the genocide of the Roma from the whole continent, and the place of death of tens of thousands of Poles and citizens of all European countries. On Saturday, 27th January 1945, the camp was liberated, and the day marked the beginning of hope for those who survived, but also the first day of bewailing those who did not survive. That event was the beginning of victory over evil. Today, 79 years later, we pay homage to millions of victims of the Nazi genocide, people who were killed in Auschwitz-Birkenau camp and other places of murder. Remembering their suffering, we pay homage to all the heroes who went through that hell. The history of this place necessitates reflection, remembrance, and action. We should primarily remember how it happened that death camps were set up, were created. It all started from people insufficiently reacting to hate speech, which, as the history of the Second World War showed, holds a destructive power. We can say with full responsibility that words dehumanizing the other led, the words that for years poisoned the hearts, the minds, and the conscience, and which at the end begot evil incarnate. Hannah Arendt called the evil of totalitarianism banal, because she believed that its reason are not only the demonic leaders, but also indifference, thoughtlessness, and obedience of millions that did not pose resistance when they still could. We all are bound to be guardians of memory of what happened in Auschwitz-Birkenau and other concentration and death camps that the Nazi regime created. I assure you, especially the former inmates and survivors, that we shall not let anyone extinguish that memory. On the International Day in memory of the victims of the Holocaust, I hereby condemn with all my might all the symptoms of discrimination, anti-Semitism, xenophobia, and racism. We say no, a very strong no. We cannot be indifferent. Ladies and gentlemen, the history of Auschwitz-Birkenau camp 79 years after its liberation is still a painful and open wound in the collective memory about the people who suffered and died here, many of them members of our families. That is why, addressing my words especially to young people who watch today's ceremony in large numbers over the media, I appeal, let us be aware of the threat vested in hatred and lie. This is important especially now when in many places of the world evil is made triumphant again. The successive generations must speak of what's happened here, especially that today the use of new technologies that make you anonymous, make you also easily deny the tragic history, manipulate fact, and in this way lie about people. May the memory of what happened in Auschwitz-Birkenau camp be for all of us a commitment to build a world where love conquers hatred, openness and empathy overcome stereotypes and bias, and every human being is respected by others and protected by wise and efficiently enforced law.
O zabranie głosu
May I now ask His Excellency, the Ambassador of Israel to Poland, Dr. Yakov Livne.
Szanowni Państwo, ladies and gentlemen. I stand here as a representative of the Jewish state. 6 million of us were murdered just for being Jews. I cannot possibly talk about 6 million, but allow me to speak about some of my family members. My grandmother, Malka Balaban, was shot in Rovno in November 1941 at the age of 46. With her were shot my great-grandparents, Nathan and Ethel, in their 70s, and my uncle Chaim, who did not reach his bar mitzvah. My wife's uncle, Dima Levin, was 4 years old when he was betrayed by a neighbor in a Belarusian village and burned alive with his grandparents. The Nairman family was the most respected in the town of Rozheshe near Lutsk, where between 70 and 200 of them were murdered. 2 women of the Lishansky family were killed while fighting in the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, or shortly before. The Goberman family had a shop on the main street of Lodz. They survived in the ghetto until the summer of 1944 and were probably murdered here in Auschwitz. Auschwitz survivor Primo Levi described this place. We say hunger or fatigue, fear and pain, but here all these are different, almost impossible to be described or understood. Ladies and gentlemen, our generation needs to remember, but also to act. We need to remember what happened and act to preserve the truth. For centuries, blood libels fueled anti-Semitism that gave birth to the monstrous Nazi ideology. We hoped that the lesson of the Holocaust has been learned. Yet today, on the eve of the International Holocaust Day, we are astonished by accusations of genocide used against the Jewish state while we fight for our existence and the security of the free world. We see today how leaders deny the Holocaust and glorify Hitler, following the footsteps of those among them who actively supported the extermination of the Jewish nation during the previous century. We see international organizations silent while Israeli babies are kidnapped and Israeli women raped. The civilized world must speak out. Our generation, dear friends, should tell the difference between good and evil, oppose evil in streets, parliaments, universities. Do not put up with the slogan "from the river to the sea," which is a call to perform a second Holocaust. Remember how wrong it was to appease Nazi Germany. Today it would be equally wrong to stay indifferent and not to oppose jihadists who murder Jews, Christians, and other Muslims. It would be wrong to finance radicals who call Jews sons of pigs and teach nothing but murder. Our civilization can hardly be imagined without the values, culture, and science created by the Jewish people for thousands of years. Civilization needs to be protected. And Jews did just that. Over 1.5 million Jewish soldiers, including my father, fought to defeat evil in World War II. I served in the Israeli army when my country stood with the West against communism. Today, the generation of our children fights jihadi barbarism. On Simchat Torah holiday, the 7th of October, we saw what one day of the Holocaust might look like. Women, men, people, old people, children, and babies were shot, mutilated, burned alive. Survivors were kidnapped. 136 hostages are still held by Hamas terrorists and must be released immediately. A straight line connects Nazi ideology to genocidal jihadism. Both drove from the darkness of the Middle Ages, both terrorized by despicable brutality. Both use anti-Semitism and xenophobia to destroy the free world. Both lie as they breathe. Dear friends, I stand here as a representative of those who were labeled Untermenschen, their body and dignity violated, their lives taken, their property stolen. The world conveniently ignored this persecution and slaughter, failing to grasp the dangers of indifference. Let me emphasize, I stand here as an ambassador of a country that makes sure every day that a second Holocaust will never happen again. With our partners, we must demonstrate wisdom and unity in a world that has become more dangerous and less predictable. Join us to stand on the right side of history and build a firewall against barbarity. Let us repeat the 3,000 years old words of King David. Sur merah va'aseh tov, bakesh shalom verodfehu. Turn away from evil and do good. Seek peace and pursue it. Am Yisrael Chai, never again is now.
Szanowni Państwo, głos
Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the guardian of this place to speak, director of Auschwitz-Birkenau Museum, Dr. Piotr Cywiński.
Stoimy tu z
We are standing here with you,
79.
dear, on the 79th anniversary of liberation,
z najtrudniejszych takich.
one of most difficult anniversaries of this type.
Byliśmy tu przez lata.
Just like we have stood here for years
Byliśmy w świat bardziej
to
sprawiedliwy,
emphasize our remembrance. We believed in a world that was more just, more friendly, and more human.
świat, którego fundamentem staną się prawa człowieka.
A world whose foundation were human rights.
Żyjąc
We believed in remembrance, lived in post-war times.
widzimy, jak cały nasz świat
Today we see how our whole world is changing. We're all standing on a huge turn of history. Today,
atakują drugich.
some liberators attack others. They rape, pillage, and murder.
W Izraelu
And in Israel, in the world that survived the Shoah, you can't even see peace on the horizon.
skalę ogólnoświatową
There are fires and conflicts and wars raging on the global scale. The global system of safety and security created after the war is no more than its own shadow today.
potrafiła zjednoczyć
Europe was unable to unite its efforts
przed powrotem
and
antysemityzmu,
protect itself against the return of racism, anti-Semitism, and xenophobia, this irrational and accursed fear of everything that is different, of the other. And we know that only a weak identity fears otherness. The values that after the war
świata
laid the foundation under the rebuilt world, peace, openness, dialogue,
uzależność,
codependence,
solidarność,
solidarity,
pomocniczość
assistance,
słabną w obliczu lęku,
They
obojętnienia,
lose power
populizmu.
with the new gusts of populism, demagogy.
Jesteśmy dziś
Perhaps we are today witnessing the end of the era of everything post-war. We're standing today next to the barrack of the women's camp where thousands of women were incarcerated, including Halina Birenbaum present with us. This barrack has been very carefully and meticulously preserved. However, you cannot preserve remembrance. It is an element riven by the winds of history. Remembrance is always a polyphony, and in the end, every generation is going to live on its own memory, and its own memory looking for keys to solve their problems, challenges, and threats. Nevertheless, the values that remembrance carries shall stay, and they do stay the same, unchangeable. For remembrance is not tantamount to historical knowledge. Remembrance is identity,
korzenie
roots,
i zarazem skrzydła
and at the same time, wings,
dla ludzi.
the key to the human choices.
Tylko takie jej
And only such understanding of it makes it possible to carry the message of values above the generations. And a memory of such extreme dehumanization paves the way to the whole humanity, especially when times are hard,
obchodzić 80.
in the days of choice. Next year, we're going to commemorate the 80th anniversary. We will stand here once again together. Will that be another commemoration in the shadow of so many wars? Or will we be able to lift up our eyes and look into the faces of the past?
Wierzą,
Those faces,
wojenność nie odeszła.
believing that the post-war life is not gone into oblivion, that the post-war identity carries the louder, warnings, the harder the times are, we must today discover more profoundly and understand more profoundly that remembrance and identity are absolutely melded together, inseparable. We may find it difficult to forecast the future. However, building it starts from decisions taken today by every one of us. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the following part of this observance will consist of the prayer and paying homage to the murdered in Auschwitz camp by the monument to the victims. The staff of the museum and volunteers will help you leave this tent and will show you how to reach that place. May I ask the survivors and the staff to stay in the tent for the time being.
Next. It's raining. It's raining.
Na rampie.
Tam są w tym.
Pani Ewo. Aha, okej.
Prawo, prawo tam siedzieć, w ogóle z tego. Tak kończę. Na głowę, na ramię.
Szanowni Państwo, w drugiej części obchodów odbędzie się wspólna modlitwa za wszystkie ofiary Auschwitz, z których większość to Żydzi, a także Polacy, Romowie i jeńcy sowieccy. W dalszej kolejności złożymy hołd ofiarom obozu Auschwitz. Ladies and gentlemen, in the second part of the commemoration, there will be a common prayer for all the victims of Auschwitz, who were mainly Jews, also Poles, Roma and Sinti, and Soviet prisoners of war. Afterwards, we'll pay tribute to the victims of Auschwitz. Do wspólnego odmówienia modlitw zapraszam naczelnego rabina Polski Michaela Szudricha, biskupa diecezji bielsko-żywieckiej, jego ekscelencję biskupa Romana Pindla, biskupa diecezji cieszyńskiej Kościoła Ewangelicko-Augsburskiego, jego ekscelencję biskupa Adriana Korczagę, przedstawiciela polskiego autokefalicznego kościoła prawosławnego, przewielebnego księdza Jarosława Antosiuka, dziekana krakowskiego. I would like to invite to recite a joint prayer the Chief Rabbi of Poland, Michael Szudrych, the Bishop of the Diocese of Bielsko-Żywiec, His Excellency Bishop Roman Pindel, the Bishop of the Cieszyn Diocese of the Evangelical Augsburg Church, His Excellency Bishop Adrian Korczago, the representative of the Polish Autocephalous Orthodox Church, Reverend Father Jarosław Antosiuk, the Dean of the Krakow District.
Siedemdziesiąt rocznicę wyzwolenia Auschwitz. 1,100,000, 1,200,000, nawet my nie wiemy. Modlimy się na pamięć wszystkich ofiar. Więcej jak 1 milion Żydów. I też modlimy się na tych, którzy przeżyli Auschwitz, jak mój wujek Henry i wszyscy inni. Ale w tym roku nasza modlitwa jest inaczej. 79. rocznica jest inaczej. Po 7 października, kiedy ludzie byli porwani z domu, inne mordowane, gwałcone, modlimy się, czy tych, którzy są w tej chwili w Gazie, Aleks Danzig i 135 innych Żydów, czy oni też będą słuchać niedługo słowo wyzwolenie. Niedługo, co znaczy dzisiaj, hayom, akshav, teraz. Psalm 130. Shir Hamalot, mimakem kraticha Adonai, Adonai shema v'koli, tien oznecha kashuvot, l'kol tachanunai. Em avanot tishmar yahu Adonai, me yamod, kimcha slicha, leman tivarei, kivete Adonai, kiveta nafshi, v'ledvarach alti, nafshi l'Adonai mishomrim laboker, shomrim laboker, yachel Yisrael Adonai, כי אם אדוני חסד, והרבה עמו פדות, והוא יפתה את ישראל מכל עוונותיו. מלא רחמים, מוטלית ולזמרוך. אלא מלא רחמים, שוכן במרומים. המצא מנוח ונכונה תחת כתפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כזורקים אסירים, את כל אלו שנשחטו ושנטבעו ושנשרפו פה באושוויץ ברקנאו על קידוש השם. בגנתם מנוחתם, ברור שכולנו מתפללים אזכרת נשמותיהם, לכן בעל הרחמים יסתירם בסתר כנפיו לעולמים, ויצרור בצורך חיים נשמתו, אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוחם בשלום המשכבם, ונאמר אמן. קדיש. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, ויעמד דברה חירותי וימלך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלו בזמן קורא ויאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם לעומי עומיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקודשה בריחו, ליעלה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תשבחתה ונחמתה, לאמירם בעלמה ויאמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו אמן. עושה שלום מדרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו אמן.
Wieczne odpoczywanie racz im dać, Panie. a światłość wiekuista niechaj im świeci. Niech odpoczywają w pokoju wiecznym. Amen.
Wszechmogący Boże, ponownie przed Twym obliczem wspominamy tych, którzy na szczególnym miejscu kaźni byli bestialsko mordowani. Ufamy, że w Tobie, naszym Bogu, znaleźli wybawienie z cierpienia i doświadczyli zwycięstwa życia nad śmiercią oraz obdarowani zostali wiecznością. Wspomóż nas, abyśmy czerpiąc naukę z przeszłości, przezwyciężali w sobie wszelką niechęć do drugiego człowieka. Motywuj nas do życia w pokoju, zgodzie i miłości. Amen.
Боже духов и все плоти, смерть поправы и дьявола упразднивый, и живот миру Твоему даровавый, сам Господи покой, души усопших раб Твоих, всех где убиенных, вместе светле, вместе злачне, вместе покойне, от мню же отбежи болезнь, печали, воздыхание, всякое согрешение содеянное ими словом или делом или помышлением, яко благий человеку любец Бог, прости, яко несть человек и же жив будет и не согрешит, Ты бо един токмо без греха, правда Твоя правда во веки, и Слово Твое истина, яко Ты есть и воскресение, живот и покой, усопших раб Твоих, Христе Боже наш, и Тебе славу воссылаем с обезначальным Твоим Отцем и пресвятым и благим и животворящим Твоим Духом, ныне и присно, и во веки веков.
Kłania pragnie strumienia wody, tak moja dusza pragnie Ciebie, Boże. Moja dusza tęskni za Bogiem, Bogiem żywym, kiedy przyjdę i ujrzę Boże oblicze. Łzy stały się moim pożywieniem we dnie i w nocy, gdy co dzień mnie pytają, gdzie jest Twój Bóg. Moja dusza rozczula się, gdy wspominam o tym, jak kroczyłem w tłumie, idąc do domu Bożego, wśród głosów radości i dziękczynień świątecznego orszaku. Czemu się smucisz, duszo moja? Czemu się we mnie trwożysz? Zaufaj Bogu, bo jeszcze będzie przeze mnie sławiony. Mój Bóg i zbawienie mojego oblicza. Moja dusza dręczy się we mnie, więc wspominam Cię z ziemi Jordanu i Hermonu, z góry Misar. Otchłań wzywa otchłań hukiem Twoich wodospadów. Wszystkie fal nawałnic przewaliły się nade mną. W dzień okazuje mi Pan swoją łaskę, a w nocy Mu śpiewam i modlę się do Boga mego życia. Mówię do Boga, opoko moja, dlaczego mnie zapomniałeś? Czemu chodzę smutny? Czemu wróg mnie gnębi? Jakby kruszyły mi kości obelgi moich wrogów, gdy cały dzień mnie pytają, gdzie jest Twój Bóg? Czemu się smucisz, moja duszo? Czemu się we mnie trwożysz? Zaufaj Bogu, bo jeszcze będzie przeze mnie sławiony, mój Bóg i zbawienie mojego oblicza.
Szanowni Państwo, Niech zapalone znicze, które złożymy przy pomniku, będą znakiem naszej wiecznej pamięci. Ladies and gentlemen, may the candles we place at the monument be a sign of our eternal remembrance. O złożenie zniczy proszę byłych więźniów KL Auschwitz i innych obozów oraz ocalałych z zagłady. I invite the former prisoners of the Auschwitz camp, other camps and Holocaust survivors to place candles. Proszę marszałek Senatu Rzeczypospolitej Polskiej panią Małgorzatę Kidawę-Błońską. Proszę wicemarszałek Sejmu Rzeczypospolitej Polskiej panią Dorotę Niedzielę. Proszę sekretarza stanu w Kancelarii Prezydenta Rzeczypospolitej Polskiej pana ministra Wojciecha Kolarskiego w imieniu prezydenta Rzeczypospolitej Polskiej pana Andrzeja Dudy. Proszę ministra kultury i dziedzictwa narodowego pana Bartłomieja Sienkiewicza w imieniu prezesa Rady Ministrów pana Donalda Tuska. Would the Marshal of the Polish Senate, Małgorzata Kidawa-Błońska, the Deputy Marshal of the Polish Sejm, Dorota Niedziela, the Secretary of State at the Chancellery of the President of the Republic of Poland, Minister Wojciech Kolarski, on behalf of the President of the Republic of Poland, Andrzej Duda, the Minister of Culture and National Heritage, Bartłomiej Sienkiewicz, on behalf of the Prime Minister, Donald Tusk, please come forward.
Nie może pani tu stać.
Proszę ambasadorów. Would the ambassadors please come forward? Proszę przewodniczącego Międzynarodowej Rady Oświęcimskiej, pana Grzegorza Berenta. Proszę przewodniczącego Rady Fundacji Auschwitz-Birkenau, pana Marka Zająca. Proszę dyrektora Państwowego Muzeum Auschwitz-Birkenau, pana Piotra Cywińskiego. Would the chairman of the International Auschwitz Council, Mr. Grzegorz Berend, the chairman of the Auschwitz-Birkenau Foundation Council, Mr. Marek Zając, and the director of the Auschwitz-Birkenau State Museum, Mr. Piotr Cywiński, please come forward. Szanowni Państwo, obchody 79. rocznicy wyzwolenia niemieckiego nazistowskiego obozu koncentracyjnego i zagłady Auschwitz dobiegają powoli końca. Dziękuję za obecność byłym więźniom Auschwitz i innych obozów, ocalałym z zagłady, a także przedstawicielom władz oraz delegacjom. Wszystkich przedstawicieli organizacji i instytucji chcących oddać hołd ofiarom proszę o złożenie zniczy. Jako pierwszych zapraszam pracowników Miejsca Pamięci Auschwitz. Następnie prosimy gości o powrót przez halę namiotową do autokarów. Jako pierwszych zapraszamy do skierowania się w stronę wyjścia byłych więźniów KL Auschwitz. Ladies and gentlemen, the commemoration of the 79th anniversary of the liberation of the German Nazi concentration and extermination camp Auschwitz is slowly coming to a close. We appreciate the attendance of the former prisoners of the Auschwitz camp, other camps, Holocaust survivors, and the representatives of the authorities and the delegations. All representatives of organizations and institutions are welcome to pay tribute and light candles. First, I would like to invite the staff of the Auschwitz Memorial to light candles. Afterwards, all guests are kindly requested to proceed through the tent hall back to the buses. The former Auschwitz prisoners are invited to be the first to leave the place of commemoration.